changes I've added there, 17th of December. As soon as we have the meeting, yeah, 5 days I can, we are running live.
Give me a second to get set up here. Welcome, everyone. Call to order the January 7th regular meeting of the Louisville School Division, LRSD, Board of Trustees. We have regrets today from Trustee Semignola and Trustee, excuse me, Polchuk. Superintendent is not here as well. We have Acting Superintendent Jeff Anderson with us today. We have the land acknowledgement will be done by Trustee Turner today.
School Division brings together a community of schools on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Anindiwak, and Dakota. Our division is located on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We recognize that Manitoba is also the traditional land of the Anishinaabe and Dene. We respect the treaties made on this land and acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and present. We dedicate ourselves to authentic alliances with Indigenous communities in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. We recognize and honor Shoal Lake 40 First Nations, source of Winnipeg's life-sustaining drinking water, as well as the treaty territories that generate and provide the electricity that powers daily activity throughout the province and beyond.
Thank you very much. Welcome and announcements. I'd like to welcome everyone participating in this hybrid meeting, hybrid board meeting. Our meetings follow a formal structure. The work with the board is conducted in a public setting. It gathers parents, students, staff, and other community members. As chair, it is my duty to preserve order, decorum at all times. All in-person and verified virtual attendees are reminded to observe the procedural bylaws, to engage in a respectful and orderly manner. We'd like to remind everyone there is a 15-minute public question period at the end of the meeting where verified virtual participants and verified in-person participants can bring forward questions for clarification regarding items on today's agenda. If your questions are not related to today's agenda, please reach out to our division through email. Finally, please be aware we audio record board meetings for accuracy and that a link to the live stream of the meeting was made available on the division's website. Unless approved, other photographs, personal recordings, audio or visual or otherwise are not permitted. And I see we have some folks here. If you're comfortable, you can let us know who you are and we can welcome you. If not, that's fine too.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm Caleb Bruce. I'm a parent of two kids in Jamrock.
Aha, very good.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Welcome. Thanks for coming out.
I'm Jacqueline, the Vice President of Professional Development at LNT.
Excellent.
We know
Okay, we know.
Thanks, Sandra.
Sandra.
Happy New Year,
Thanks for
everybody.
coming. Happy New Year, everyone. Then we move on to our vision and mission. I'm making it an affirmation of vision and mission. Our vision is for all members of our community to excel as caring, confident, capable, and resilient lifelong learners, contribute to a democratic and sustainable world. Our mission is to provide a safe, inclusive, and engaging environment where personal and collective learning are valued and each of us reaches our full potential. Next, we move to the approval of the agenda and the minutes. The approval of the agenda for the regular board meeting of January 7th, 2025. We have a motion of a mover and a seconder, Trustee Turner, Trustee Nordheim, that the January 7th agenda for the regular meeting be approved. All those in favor? Again, we have vote is carried. We have electronic voting. That's what happens there. And then the approval of the minutes for the regular board meeting, December 17th, 2024. We've asked if any edits were necessary and no changes have been required. December 17th minutes will be accepted as distributed. And LRSD news. News from the Board of Trustees today will be provided by Trustee Walker. Take it away.
I'd like to begin by wishing our community a happy new year. This is an exciting time in our economy. The students and staff are refreshed and ready to learn together. As a classroom teacher, I've always found that this is one of the most productive times of years for my students. So I expect there'll be lots of exciting things happening in classrooms around the division in the weeks ahead. December was an exciting time in LRSD. I had the opportunity to visit Call Howdy twice. The second time I went there to help volunteer at their holiday store. It was really a joy to meet many community members and connect with families as their children shop for holiday gifts. I even had the opportunity to run into a friend that I went to elementary school together with at the LRSD school back in the day. At our final board meeting in 2024, we had the privilege of hearing our divisional choir perform before the meeting began. It was truly inspiring to experience the music our students created through countless hours of dedicated practice. And that evening, we also received a presentation from students and staff from across the division expressing deep concern about the climate emergency. They urged us to take meaningful action to ensure that the Louis Riel School Division develops sustainably in the years ahead. And I'm feeling confident that our division will work with these community leaders, students, and educators to come up with a plan for meaningful action and plan to personally be involved with this work, as I'm also a member of the Educator for Climate Action. So really exciting to see them coming out. And I heard from one of my friend's daughters that she watched online and said she was really excited to see it. Happy to see it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Very much. Any questions or comments on that? Certainly enjoyed the choir and the presentation. Good to see the kids being involved. Very knowledgeable, very informative, and exciting. So thank you. Now we have news from the senior leadership team will be brought to us today by Assistant Superintendent Cadet.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to share a couple of stories with you tonight based on some experiences I had in December. On December 12th, I had the pleasure, along with Trustee Nemeth, to attend a multi-school concert at Légiennes Bay. They featured performances from the band and choir ensembles from CJS, Varennes, Marianne Gaboudi, Saint-Germain, and George McDowell. And each school showcased some of their in-house ensembles. But the evening ended with an absolutely beautiful rendition of Joni Mitchell's classic Both Sides Now, led by the CJS Vocal Jazz Ensemble, and with the elementary students joining them during the chorus. It was just a beautiful way to celebrate the arts and celebrate community. And I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the great work that all those music teachers are doing in bringing their students the joy of music in their lives, and for organizing this annual tradition in that CJS family community. The other story I wanted to share was that on a recent visit to Naco Place School, Jamie, I don't have any links today. Oh, okay. The grade 7 and 8 class, I was able to visit, the principal, Thomas Locke, brought me to a class that was working on a special project where they were learning about wampum belts, and all of the students in grade 7 and 8 are working on the same project. And the students were actually creating their own belts, with each belt telling a unique story, or had a specific meaning that was meaningful to the student. In this project that they all participated in, they were working on before the break at Naco Place. And I wanted to acknowledge that the teacher from the class that I visited was the coordinators of this, but she's working in collaboration with everybody across the school. But Melanie Richard definitely was very engaged in this, was doing a lot of work with their students to get them to understand how important this work was. But I could really see and feel how meaningful the project was to the students. And when talking about the work, they were truly able to talk so much about what they could provide. So they were really engaged in learning. And so knowing that tonight I would be sharing this work with you, the students of Ms. Richards' class decided they could send me a text that they wrote together to represent the work that they were doing. And so rather than summarizing the work, I feel obliged I should read their own words. So here's what they sent. The title of the article is called Written in Wampum. And this year our grade 7 class participated in the Written in Wampum project. We learned about the Haudenosaunee wampum belts and the Treaty of Niagara. It is an interdisciplinary project that includes all subject areas. We liked that we did not just look at the surface culture, but learned about their stories, core values, understanding of the environment, justice, and significance of wampum belts, and the great law of peace. This is part of deep culture that is talked about in the cultural iceberg model. We had deep conversations and used critical thinking skills. In our class, we came across a handout about the Haudenosaunee that is used by thousands of teachers. We are correcting the entire first page, sending our suggestions to the Bendigahaga elder, and then submitting our recommendations to the publisher. We really like the wampum belts. Our belts are contracts made between three parties, ourselves and or others, the environment, and future generations. The belts are beautiful pieces of art that we made using beads and yarn. We now have some of the basic skills to make beaded bracelets, backpack tags, keychains. But most of all, we learned the truth. True, though it is not in the curriculum per se, this year we learned that about the Treaty of Niagara. We believe that the Treaty of Niagara was a true nation-to-nation bilateral agreement between the Crown and First Nations people. Here, the Royal Proclamation of 1763 was certified, and the treaty ensured that First Nations interests were fairly represented. The treaty was recorded in approximately 84 wampum belts. We believe that these wampum belts, exchanged by both parties, are a valid and legitimate form of documentation. Currently, the Government of Canada does not recognize the Treaty of Niagara. We disagree with the government and believe that the Treaty of Niagara should be recognized. About 2,000 people representing 24 nations attended the treaty. The Government of Canada has decided to silence those voices in favor of a unilateral proclamation that was made with interests of colonists in mind. Speaking to you in our voice is our first call to action. This is our way of committing to truth and reconciliation. And when we become adults and have more legal rights, we will make our voices heard through our votes and through our leadership. We know this will not be easy, and it will be a long time, but it is the right thing to do. Thank you for listening, signed by all of the students in the class in the Institute. So some really authentic, deep learning going on in the classroom, exploring cultural themes in very profound ways. So I applaud the staff for bringing this to the students, and certainly the students for their tremendous work and effort in writing such a fine piece to represent their learning.
Very impressive. Questions, comments on that? Well, thank you very much, Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent Cadiz. We now move on to finance and audit, the budget 2025-2026. Secretary Treasurer Rudnicki will share some updates.
Thank you very much. So I just wanted to remind the public that we are currently doing public consultation on the budget for the 2025-2026 school year, so next school year. And this is done through our thought exchange. You can find it on our website and either share a thought or rank a thought. As well as we sent MailChimps to staff, parents, and guardians. We've posted on social media. We have a spotlight story on our website, and we've sent the links out in the Learning Circle and the parent post. The second thing I want to talk about was a report that was requested by trustees at the last meeting, and this has to do with the exploration of a swimming program for the L'Oreal School Division. So as a background or I guess to frame it, there's a couple of school divisions in the city that have learned to swim and swimming programs. That's St. James, Seven Oaks, and Winnipeg School Division. And so as part of the public consultation meeting, as part of the budget process this year, a request was done to look at what the cost would be for a similar program in the L'Oreal School Division. And so this program would outline or would involve either grade 3 or grade 4 students. And based on our cost analysis, there are several different options. There is a 4-week option as well as a 10-week option. As for the 4-week option, we're estimating that the cost will be between $111,000 to $197,000. And for a 10-week program, the estimated cost would be $417,000 to $494,000. So I just wanted to highlight that for the public when they're engaged in the thought exchange. You'll see a couple of, thoughts as to exploring a swim program for the Riel School Division.
Very much. Questions, comments on that? Thank you, and we encourage everyone to engage with us in the thought exchange and these other methods that are available to give us your views on the upcoming budget. Then we move on to chair information to the board. Just prior to this meeting, we're pleased to have a meeting with our southeast area MLAs, the MLAs who represent the Louis Riel School Division area. And we had a very fruitful conversation with them. And we like to have as good a relationship as possible and as open a relationship as possible with our different levels of government who believe that goes towards serving communities that we all serve. We discussed a number of things. We went through with them our multi-year strategic plan and talked about the achievements that we've had so far. We talked about our priorities and the financial support that we're seeking for expansion of J.H. Bruns and the new school at Colbert. We also talked about our plan 2034 and our new dashboard is the school building review dashboard. Plan 24 is a plan involving the growth in our community and where it's going to happen. Our leadership team very comprehensively looked at the new developments and plans for new developments and where they're coming, when they will be coming. And we plotted out 10 years in advance what our needs are going to be in terms of new builds and expansions. And the MLAs were very receptive, and I feel it was a very positive meeting that we had. And I open the floor to any of my trustee colleagues, if anyone else has any comments about the meeting that we had just prior to this meeting. Is that a quick note? If not, that's fine. It was a good meeting, and it's always good to keep those avenues of communication open. Next, we move to senior leadership team information support. I would begin with capital project update. And again, I'll turn over to Acting Superintendent Anderson and the members of the SLT to provide us updates on these various projects.
Thanks. I'll ask Secretary Treasurer Rudnicki to share some information about because Sage Creek Bonavista Vista and Assistant Superintendent Juan Perez to share information about Island Lakes Community School.
Thank you very much. Right now we are currently 72% complete on the construction of Sage Creek Bonavista. We are still set to be open for September 2025. As we've said before, but I just want to remind the public that we do have Cam Johnson. He has been appointed principal of the new school, and he started this week full-time concentrating on the uplift of getting that school operational for September 2025. So all indicators are still on track.
For Island Lake School, we confirmed the general contractor is set to mobilize to start clearing snow and adjusting fences in the site so that they can begin that next week sometime, in expectation of portables being moved over from Saint-Germain. And a notice to the community will be sent out later this week with more details about that. If weather is permitting, everything works out as expected, we'd be looking at approximately 12 weeks for that.
Thank you for that information. And then we move now. We had a number of reports that came in late last year, and we didn't have enough time to give them full justice at our meetings. We wanted to have fruitful discussion on them. Beginning at 6.2 is our LRSD's results relative to the provincial assessment program. And again, I'll turn to Superintendent Cadez to give us information on that.
I don't know if I'll go through everything I did last time, but I'll give you an overview of the purpose of those assessments at the various grade levels and the data collected by the province. We did have access to the results that have been attained over the last 10 years in all of those areas the province provides. From there, we were already taking questions about it. So those questions that were lingering from the last meeting, I found out since you've been going through the documentation. Ask.
Yes, Jordan.
So I'm wondering how we're dovetailing this information. First of all, I gotta say, I'm still kind of surprised at the numbers in terms of, you know, certainly we're on par or slightly above in provincial assessments, but I'm not sure that the provincial assessments are all that stellar. It's a little bit discouraging to me to see that. But I'm wondering how we're dovetailing the information you're doing in terms of the research on literacy with this information and how that's coming together for staff in particular.
So that's a great question. And so we've just finished, as I mentioned earlier with the MLAs, that we have sort of finished the first round of a universal progress monitoring, I think, of our students using evidence-based tools. And so we have results now that go from K to 8, and we can sort of see the trajectory of where students are at based on that data. We had some informal ideas because some of these tools have been used in various contexts, both elementary and in high school as well, to give us some feedback as to where we think we are. So we haven't gotten to the point where the data is at the center of the conversation for the teachers yet, but now that we have the data, you know, I'm working with the divisional principal, Nicholas Kelly, and we're going to start looking at that data with principals together so that we can give strategies as to how to present that to staff and how we can act on that information once we've received it. In terms of dovetailing it and comparing it, you know, to see how it compares from one to the other, they're two almost completely different sets of data. When you think about the provincial one, it talks about some of the strategies that students use when they're reading. It talks about their comprehension exclusively. Data we're collecting has two measures, basically. There's a decoding fluency measure and there's a comprehension measure. And within there, there's also some accuracy, you know, if they're correcting themselves and they make mistakes and so on. And from there, you're able to get a benchmark score that tells you if they are hitting a benchmark that declares them to be either at the benchmark or showing some level of risk of having challenges moving forward. And I think as we look at those students that flag in the risk area, we want to make sure that if we're getting a percentage that's in the risk area, it corresponds to the percentile target of the test itself. And so in the tool that we're using in English, for example, the target for the greatest area of risk is the 20th percentile. We would not want to see more than 20% area, because anything more than that would indicate there's an anomaly in the instruction. So that's the process we're working through.
Can I have a second? In terms of successful grade 9 credit attainment, that's an interesting provincial data collection, seeing as how there's no consistency in terms of expectations across the board. I'm not worried about the province, I'm worried about LRSD. So are there, you know, I think it's valuable to return to assessment strategy every so often in terms of what is it we're looking for and how are grade 9s achieving those credits and what happens after that in terms of tracking, because they're tracking up to 6 years for graduation. So even if we've got this high percentage of grade 9 credits, something happens after that. And what is that? And are we looking at the assessment consistency, not just across the division, but in hallways, in individual schools? Are we going to revisit that so that we're getting more accurate data?
So you're wondering if there is consistency in how assessment for learning is attempted by teachers in individual classrooms? regardless of if it's in the same building or across the division.
I think that's part of it because there's a definite drop off of attainment of credits after grade 9. And so what's happening between the grade 9 achievement and after that?
So there's two things I guess I can point to. One would be with the introduction of Power School. I know that the grade book model itself has been topic of discussion. Talking about an outcomes-based assessment model is something that has been presented to many, many groups of teachers in the last 4 months. It's an ongoing endeavor that we will be continuing to talk to students and to teachers about. The other part I will bring to your attention is a professional development model that we have in place at the moment. We have one high school that's engaged at this moment. It goes up to grade 9, but it's a model that has been in evolution for several years now. We're able to use that with the earlier years with some of the screening data that we're collecting, but we don't have that in the older years. Part of that model includes some very clear assessment tools to guide and inform instruction. They don't give you a final assessment, as it were, or assessment for learning, but it does provide some guidelines as to what some of the more essential learning concepts are at that grade 9 level. And then it does show a progression naturally from grades 1 all the way through to grade 9. So there is connection from one year to the next. We're hoping that, you know, that as schools engage more in that process, that there will be greater consistency and we'll see fewer gaps in learning as we move forward.
And so are the grade 9 results consistent across all of our high school in terms of credit attainment?
That I would have to look at.
Okay.
That's a tough one. We do have Power BI data that definitely show us that.
Great.
Any
Thank you.
further questions or comments? Thank you very much for that information. We do move now to attrition and retention, the French immersion program. Superintendent Anderson will provide some information on that.
Yes, very good. And similarly, I had provided an overview at the last meeting. I know that there was a question that had been raised, wondering about how retention in French immersion program in Louis-Riel compares to provincial data. So at our last meeting, I didn't have provincial data to share with you. Subsequently, I have received some data. So this is preliminary data would show that we are averaging above or consistently above the provincial average for the data that they have shown. Their measure is calculated slightly differently than the way we have calculated ours. So using the Power BI tool that we have to look at retention and French immersion, we're going to be able to go and hone our measure so that we're measuring in the exact same way that the province. And essentially, the data that I shared with you at the last meeting was year over year from grade 1 to grade 2, grade 2 to grade 3, or we could look from K to 4 or 5 to 8 over those spans. The province measure works slightly differently, and they look at snapshots, grade 3, grade 7, grade 10. And then they look 2 years down the road to see how many students are still in the program when they're in grade 5, grade 9, and grade 12. And they take an average across all of those. So it will be interesting, and I'll be pleased to bring that data back to you when we can compare apples to apples. Right now, the numbers that we have from the province, certainly it does indicate that we are, as we have reported anecdotally, we have more success in retaining students in the French immersion program in Louis-Riel than province-wide. The other caveat that I would put on the provincial data is that Louis-Riel School Division accounts for approximately half of all French immersion students in the province. So with that being said, we have a big influence on the provincial data as well. So we will be continuing our conversation with the province to see if we can get some disaggregated data to look more closely at our school division compared to other metro school divisions or compared to rural school divisions in the province.
Yes. Emmett.
Because Louis Riel is single track French immersion school, I guess what I'm curious about is comparing to jurisdictions that also have single track schools as opposed to dual track that is more like common everywhere except for Louis Riel in the province, or anecdotally. Do you know, I guess I could look it up, but is that something that has been researched at all?
Certainly, and in the overview at the last meeting, I had referenced a prevent the French document that came out in 2023, where they're talking about the vision for French immersion in the province. And based on research that they had done, they recommend that school divisions employ a single track model as we do, because it does contribute to more retention and greater student proficiency in the language than in dual track models. It would be difficult to do a comparison because and even Louis Riel, currently we have a Sage Creek school that is dual track. That's our only dual track school at the moment. And when the new school opens, will be entirely single track again. But there is no other school division in the province that has uniquely single track schools. There are blended models in other urban school divisions where they have some dual track and some single track. So that is an interesting question, but I don't know that we would be able to get the data disaggregated to that
No,
level.
it's just curious. Okay.
You know,
When you take a look at the data that came with these assessments, the provincial data for French immersion is, we're pretty comparable. Like the provincial data isn't so much lower for us in terms of being single track. In the two math and the French.
Slightly above in all of this.
Slightly above, but not statistically. I didn't think it was that significant. So that is something that I find interesting, because is the certification the same in some of the dual tracks? Are they taking the same number of credits that is required here?
Yes, so to be clear, graduation requirements in Manitoba
Yeah,
changed recently. So between grade 9 and grade 12, students have to accumulate 15 credits in French instructed courses, which includes Francais course in each of grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. In many school divisions, it can be a struggle for students to meet that base of 15 courses in French. In our specialized French immersion high schools at Belleville and Jean Sauvé, students are graduating with, of their 30 credits, typically 26 of them are in French. So it does contribute to a higher degree of retention for us, because they have access to many option courses in French, where in a dual track school, you may see students who, if they want to take a specialized course like maybe even biology or physics, maybe it's not offered in French at their schools, so they need to do it in English.
Right.
Or in even some of the larger high schools, yeah, you can take biology in French, but it's an E slot. You could take the English one in B slot and finish early. So, you know, sometimes it tests students' commitment to the program as well. Convenience versus language proficiency. Sometimes convenience wins out, but
I just was expecting a higher percentage in these provincial assessments?
When you're speaking of, you're comparing, what would be the, achievement that French immersion students are attaining on the grade 12,
Français.
pre-cal, Français.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like these results that came from, the work that Ron was,
Yeah, and I think my comment to that, trustee Norheim, would be, I think we would need to look at, who is in those courses, because we are graduating, far, more significant numbers of students, from our French immersion program who are, of different academic levels. We're very inclusive. Some of these other programs to complete in Francais grade 12, it might just be your best and your brightest who have that commitment or who are willing to hang on in the program that long in a dual track setting. So
but the comparison is similar to the English programs and we're getting, anyways, this is good. Thank you. That's sufficient.
Anyone else with questions? I'd just like to ask, trying to figure out the numbers. You were saying that the LRSD represents 50% of the French immersion, or approximately, of the French immersion students in the province. Is that correct?
I'll just bring that along.
But just let me finish my thought is that the numbers that you have, you're trying to compare, are numbers for the whole province.
Right.
And we have our own numbers, the numbers they provided you, the numbers of the whole province. So it's really difficult to compare because we're part of those numbers.
Correct.
So if you could separate out the other schools from the LRSD and then try to judge what our numbers are compared to what the numbers would be for the province-wide that exclude Blue Real.
And those are discussions that I've been having with the Bureau de l'Éducation française, and I got the combined numbers now, so one step at a time.
Yeah. Because that's really interesting. I've never even thought of that. That by existing, we messed up the numbers. Yeah, interesting. Okay, thank you. Next, we move on to Workplace Safety and Health Committee's second quarter report. We have Derek Sheldon, who is the Assistant Director of Staff Services, and will provide this information for us.
Thank you. So yes, bringing forward information from the quarterly report. So a meeting was held in December with the Workplace Safety and Health. Some items to bring forward from that meeting. First one being that we have received a confirmation of our exemption from the province so that we can have one divisional committee for workplace safety and health as opposed to having to have one for each of our school locations. Makes it a much more efficient system to work. And so that has been received and that goes for the calendar year of 2025. We have upcoming training available for our principals, vice principals, and other divisional supervisors. It's a one-day workshop that focuses on the rights, responsibilities under the Act, as well as teaches them how to conduct an investigation for a workplace safety and health matter. So those training dates are coming up later on in January and February. Again, available for our principals, vice principals, and divisional supervisors.
Good.
Also, sorry, a couple points also highlighted from the meeting, our industrial arts status. So in the past, we've actually had to have a separate committee for the industrial arts grouping of workplaces. That's now been joined into the one divisional committee as well. So it was a matter of the province viewing it as a high risk grouping through the implementation of our safety plans and the history that we've had of low incidences within that sector. We've been able to have that joined one committee, so it's a great sign for us. There's a safety inspection document specific to industrial arts areas of the schools that's been designed and is being carried out in all of those areas as we go throughout the year. The last point I have is just changes to each school's emergency response plan. So there's going to be updates made. Each school is working on updating their plan, just specifically how to deal with the situation of handling phone calls and directions through power outage in schools, getting communications out to the community and having communication processes. Those are all the updates that I have.
Good, thank you. Turner,
It's all one committee now, and how are each of the schools represented? Like, is it one person from the community of schools? Is it, how can you know what's going on in each school?
Yep, so we have representation from the division, we have representation from each of the unions that the division. We also have representation from several of the schools. I don't know if we have one from every school, but there are committee members that are assigned to a group of schools, and they visit those schools and take part in the inspections and speak with the administrators and other staff. They bring forward any items to the committee.
your time.
Does cyber stuff fit into this committee?
It's a fantastic question that I don't have an answer for.
Like, I just didn't know if it just fell under tech or like, IT, I mean, sorry, but, somehow it seems to me that it might have a place here as well.
And I'll say I'm not actually on the committee
Yeah.
myself, so I'll take that one away.
If
and
you wouldn't
look at
mind, that would be great. I think it's kind of relevant at this point in time.
Thank you very much for that. We have school board correspondence. There's a number of correspondence that have been received and sent both to us and through the MSBA. We have not been, no requests for anything to be pulled out for discussion, so those will be accepted. Move then to the public question period. We have four folks here. Anyone have any questions regarding anything that was on tonight's agenda?
I was just wondering if you could share which MLAs were.
Yes, all of the local MLAs were here except for MLA Moses, who is out of the province. We know the names,
So we had Billy Cross, we had, just trying to think, Tyler Blasco,
Glasgow.
Mike Moyes, Renee Cable, and Robert Lizelle. Thank you, trustee them. So you can put them down in the minutes.
Sure. Anything else? Good, thank you, everyone. That was a quick meeting for the first meeting back from holidays, so thank everyone. We'll just need to return briefly to include our in camera. And I would like a moment with just the trustees after that, very, very brief. We're adjourned.
Have a picture of it.